Welcome to the Brotherly Ballers podcast with your hosts, Jack Vickers and Tyler Herman.
Welcome in, ballers. Thank you for another time of joining us for a little Brotherly Ballers podcast. We are coming to you one day late, as per kind of norm lately, but don't judge us. Life gets busy. So we're going to be jumping into some Week 10 previews, looking ahead as people start to kind of do the playoff push for their leagues, whether you got Week 14, Week 15, anything like that. We're going to be talking about the Vikings getting back on track after a rough couple of games stretch here, and we're going to get into all of our regularly scheduled programs and games and events and all that. But first, Tyler, welcome us in. How are we doing?
We're doing pretty good. I'm sure everybody stayed up late watching the election because everyone super cares about this, and this is now an election podcast.
8:30.
Yes, this all we're talking about. This whole day is election and politics. So that's all we're doing. If you came here for football, that's not what we do.
Yeah. Time to leave for that. For those of you that didn't subscribe, we appreciate the two of you staying along and didn't just exit out of our show right there. So we will try to lure you in really quickly with a couple of fun things here. And Tyler, I was lazy and put them in the notes, so hopefully you didn't look at them. But if you did, at least you can react to it. So cool. Well, we're gonna do some crazy, fun, goofy stories here with a little bit of. There it is. All right. This is our favorite segment of just random kind of hard to believe facts and stories and things in the NFL. Some fantasy, some not, but I usually have a solid 7 to 10 here, so I'll rattle through them fairly quickly. But real quick, going on deep dive metrics, but 2024 fantasy points per route run leaders. A few names at the top that you'd kind of expect. A.J. Brown, 0.76 is number one. Rashee Rice was 0.74 before injury ending the season. Nico Collins coming back from IR is 0.66. And then Josh Downs, specifically without Anthony Richardson, is number 4 in the entire league, just ahead of JJ, Justin Jefferson. So turns out Josh Downs, a wide receiver 1 with Joe Flacco instead. So
I love it. Repping that UNC.
Ooh,
let's go.
I'm taking the fact out. That's it.
Nope.
Number 2, yards per route run versus press man coverage specifically. A.J. Brown, once again, number 1 at 6.5. But number 2, a guy you would not guess, Lad McConkey at 5.3. And the next closest is only 4.5. So he's almost a full yard more per route run versus man coverage. So rookie's got it figured out.
I like it.
Number 3, one of my boys. I talk about him every week with a fun fact because he just breaks records all over the place. But Devon Achane, shout out to Jordan for not calling him A-Chain or A-Channy, like his coworker apparently. Devon Achane's full season pace in receiving only, 113 catches, 1,105 yards, and 11 touchdowns, which would be 17 points per game in PPR as a receiver, but he's a running back. So just insanity how much they're using him receiving. He would be the number 1, the RB1 this year. He's RB1 every game that Tua has played. If you prorate that out for, it's only like a 3.5 or whatever, but just insanity how much of a difference that makes. Number 4, one of your guys that I seem to also talk about every single week, but Bo Nix is one of 4 rookie quarterbacks since 1970. We're talking over 50 years, with 8 passing touchdowns and 4 rushing touchdowns through his first 8 career games. The other 3, Dak, which kind of surprised me, RG3, and then Cam. You wouldn't think that's that high of a mark to beat. I mean, 8 passing touchdowns through 8 games, 4 rushing touchdowns. I get those are fluky, but crazy. He's only one of 4 to do it in 50 plus years.
He's a stud. Like I said, he came in with the most experience of literally near any quarterback in the NFL as far as rookie goes compared to some of the other guys. And dude is the truth.
Season.
Yeah, exactly right. So he's a starter from his freshman year all the way on. So he just got plenty of tread on the tires. So he's looking good.
A little bit of fantasy insight here, but a guy that I'm kind of in on, like maybe a buy low target for some tight end needy teams down the stretch. Evan Ingram last year with Christian Kirk had 7.5 targets per game average, and without Christian Kirk in the handful of games that he missed, 10.2. Kirk now being out for the entire season, Ingram's going to get a lot of work. Most yards, this one was crazy. Most yards per pass attempt this season is Malik Willis with 9.7. And if that wasn't enough, most yards per carry by a quarterback this season, also Malik Willis with 8.6. So just for what that's worth, that's kind of just bananas.
Who needs Jordan Love?
Yeah, just get rid of
Malik Willis.
New highest paid quarterback. What'd you give him all that money for?
That's right.
Last couple here, a little bit of sadness for the hometown boys, but 106 wide receivers have 4 or more catches in a game this year. Not a whole lot of a threshold to beat. Jordan Addison is not one of those 106 receivers. He does not even have 4 catches in a game. Luckily, he's had a lot of games with a touchdown
yards,
or 2, or yards. Yeah, he's getting the deep shot, but he's not getting any volume, which is kind of surprising considering Hawkinson was out all year. So, and then lastly, this one I talked about it last week with Jared Goff's insane completion, but Amon-Ra has thrown a touchdown to Jared Goff more recently than Jared Goff has thrown an incompletion to Amon-Ra.
Okay, that's
I ended with that one because
ridiculous.
That's the soundbite that I've read that and I was like, that can't be true. Just a couple weeks ago, but yeah, he's perfect passer rating, 100% completion percentage, hundreds of yards, all touchdowns to Amon-Ra every time he looks his way. So yeah,
love every
that's
bit
all
of that.
I got for the bananas segment. So we're going to move into some NFL news, and I'm going to let Tyler do the Vikings 60-second synopsis with our bounce back last week.
The Vikings are back on track. We didn't make it look pretty, but we got the job done. Yeah, Minnesota took down the Colts on Sunday Night Football. Got flexed into it and put everybody on primetime, and we did not do ourselves any favors.
Classic primetime.
100%, but we won 21 to 13. That was a rough first half. We did the exact opposite of what we've been doing all year. We had a horrible first half and a fantastic second half. So Darnold threw 3 TDs in the second half. We had three turnovers, including a scoop and score fumble. So it was sloppy, but we got there, right? At the end of the day, that's what we're looking for. So Jordan Addison, you saw the amazing catch in the back of the end zone, I'm sure. So there were some highlights, but once again, our defense helped us out, and Sam Darnold's second half heroics got us the ugly win, but we'll take it.
Yeah, it was not pretty. I would like to see us be doing a little bit better than a loss and a barely win against 2 teams in the stretch that I called would be very, very easy for us. But yeah, win's a win. We'll take it. They're not going to all be amazing. It was nice seeing us bounce back in the second half for a change. The scoop and score one, I don't know if you saw it or watched the highlights, but their defensive tackle literally ran over our center. He barely touched him, and he was just mauled, and then he drills Darnold on a pretty easy play. So not ideal. I'd love to see us protect him a little bit more because I don't know if he is holding onto the ball too long or if it's just our offensive line struggling without Darisaw. We will see. We also obviously lost Will Reichert, our rookie kicker, who hadn't missed a kick all season and then missed a couple, and then it came out that he was injured and he's going to probably be on IR, and so we've signed a guy to replace that. So I'm hoping our kicking struggles don't come into play in the next few weeks, just with how well he had done. I don't want to regress to the pain that is Vikings kickers, but we'll see what that happens with. So looking at week 10, we have an away game versus the Jaguars, who is about probably the best team you want to play at this point. Noon, not primetime because nobody wants to watch that. So
yeah,
I won't go into a whole lot of details about what we need to do to win this game because Christ, if we can't win this one, I don't have a whole lot else to say. We just need to not play terrible and do anything better than our absolute floor to win it. So do you have any brief thoughts on that?
Yeah, I'm with you. This should be one of those dominating wins. I get we're playing on the road, and we like to play to our competition level. Clearly, we play up to the Lions, we play down to the Colts. It's just a very Minnesota thing to do. So as much as I don't want this to be close, it just seems to be what we like to do. So I want to see, like you talked about earlier, I want to see domination on both sides of the ball. One of the worst pass defenses being the Jags in the NFL, middle of the road run defense. We should be able to do whatever we want on offense. It will feel like a failure if we don't put up at least 27.
Yep, totally agree. I think it just needs to be defense should be able to handle it easy. Offense needs to step it up a little bit because 21 points on a Colts meh defense followed by the previous week of not even breaking that against the Rams was pretty disappointing. So
agreed.
Overall, I still stand by. I think the 6-game stretch I predicted we'd be 4-2 over it, but would be nice to not be already 500 across the board. So it needs to be a good one this week. I just want to see a full 4-quarter game, not a first half slow start, not a second half lapse where we let them back in the game. Just please don't let Trevor Lawrence and the Jaguars look anything more than what they've been all year. So
yeah, agreed.
All right, enough about that. Moving into the NFL pick'em side. So we'll just kind of recap it quick since we don't have the official graphic this week. So for you YouTube people, we're so sorry, but please stay tuned for next week because it'll be pretty again. Max stays in the lead at 13-6 despite going 1-1, just because most of the rest of us were a couple games back. Nate actually moves into second place with a 2-0 week. getting the Panthers and Vikings correct. I went 1-1. I went the Saints with the upset with the Panthers. Should have been fine, but I also had the Vikings go correct. Tyler stays with me. We've been basically tied all season at 1-1. He went Saints and Vikings as well. Foster gets up to tie with us two, getting Kansas City correct, but then the Browns incorrect. Nick, Saints and Vikings. You heard me say that before. Joe getting up to 500 for the first time, getting the Lions and the Bills both correct. So he's at 9-9. And then Connor has a rough week, getting the Patriots wrong and the Browns wrong. So 8-10. So everybody's pretty much a game apart from the next person up. We just kind of onesie twosies here and there. So Tyler, what do we got for week 10?
Yeah, for week 10, seems like everybody's kind of going back to the well of picking one of the teams. So if we get an upset, we could have a tough one. So a lot of Philly over Dallas this week. So a divisional game, but we'll see if it's tighter than everybody expects. But I don't expect it to be that. But Jack, you're going with Philly over Dallas, along with Nate and Mac as well. And then there's a lot of Giants in Carolina, understandably. Two terrible teams, and the way we do pick them, you got to use them at some point. So Jack is going with the Giants over Carolina. Nick's going Giants over Carolina. I'm going Giants over Carolina. Nate, Mac. I think those are the main ones. And then there's a few of them going Carolina over Giants with Connor and Joe. And I am too. Give me one of each, so I can just take my 1-1 and get two terrible teams off the book. So I'm gonna go with Giants over Carolina and Carolina over the Giants. Jack's going Philly over Dallas, Giants over Carolina. Nick's going Giants over Carolina, Chicago over New England. Nate's going Philly over Dallas, Giants over Carolina. Mac going Philly, Dallas, Giants, Carolina. Foster, Minnesota over
Jacksonville,
Jags, and then Buffalo over Indy, and then Connor's going Carolina over Giants, and then Arizona over Jets. Pretty relatively spicy, but they're at home, so I don't mind it. They're playing incredibly well. And then Joe going Carolina over Giants and Chargers over Titans for week 10.
I like that one too. If I hadn't already used the Chargers, I would have. So
yep.
All right, going into the Minnesota pick'em. This past week, week 9 was the week of the favorites. Tyler noticed that 14 out of the 15 favorites won, so we tried to get a little too cute apparently and didn't just pick the favorites of every single matchup. But the Saints were the only ones that messed that up with the Panthers by 1 point, which derailed a lot of people. So the leader's currently at 96. Tyler's right behind him at 95 with an 11-point week, and I also had an 11-point week. I think we had the exact same picks,
I think so.
and I'm at 89. So in striking distance, just kind of staying alive. So the only real one as far as like the tough ones last week that I talked about, picked the Cardinals over the Bears, nailed that one. The Browns, Patriots, and then Packers especially were disappointments. Packers were my underdog pick of the week, and they just looked flat. So
yeah, they did.
Looking into week 10, not ideal. But Jared Goff was out of the dome, and he was supposed to do bad. So suck it, Packers.
That's right.
Week 10, I'm going to be honest with you guys. I have a lot of flippy-floppy ones, so these are just kind of, I'm highlighting and don't know who I'm picking yet, but it'll probably end up just coming down to I pick the underdog non-favorite to try to steal a point. So for now, Ravens are locked. Giants, Panthers, Giants are favored 75-25. That seems very high for a team that I also don't believe in, so we'll see what happens there. But the Panthers announcing Bryce Young starting again does help me lean that way. Bears, I do like over the Patriots, but it's 92-8, and that just seems like way too much belief in Caleb Williams as a guy who I just haven't been in on even in the offseason and dynasty stuff. So that might be a little high. I might lean Drake May and see if they can pull something off there. Bills, Chiefs, Falcons, 49ers, all very safe locks. Commanders, I am picking, but I think it's going to be tough versus the Steelers defense. That one could be interesting, and Russ has been able to move the ball decently, and the Commanders defense is bad. So it's just whether Jaden can keep doing what he's been doing against that Steelers defense. Vikings, Chargers, Eagles feels pretty safe, and then we got Cardinals versus Jets. Tyler just talked about. I am leaning Cardinals, but 59-41 could be interesting. That's close enough where I probably just go with my gut on that one. Lions, Rams, rounding things out. And then, Lions are locked, and then Rams, 75% versus the Dolphins. With Tua back, we'll talk about this one in a second, but that's another one that I'm kind of watching big time. So before we get into that, do you have any other differences or just brief thoughts on those?
No, I'm with you. I think you highlighted some of the big ones when you're looking at these, if you're playing in pick'ems and whatnot. A lot of these are coin flip games, and if you see some of those that are 75% plus for what is truly like a 1 2 3 point spread game, if you're trying to make up some ground, you got to take a risk at some point, right? I mean, we saw it like last year with what I did. Jack was at the top and was able to kind of play it safe and not have to go too crazy. I, on the other hand, I was like, I'm down 8 or 9 games with 3 weeks left. You just got to pick them. And if you get them right, great, you're back in. And if not, you're shooting for first. I'm not out here to take fifth. So so just understand that as we get to the tail end of that. But so I like that. I think I could see the Panthers again playing at home on a winning streak. So we can see if they can continue. Commanders will be a tough one for sure. I like the Cardinals as well, and I certainly don't hate Dolphins over the Rams as a potential at another 75-25.
As a perfect segue, my week 10 pick of the week for the underdog is going to be the Dolphins. I think despite them being 2-10 or 2-6, excuse me, their record is lower than their potential because just getting Tua back. Yeah. They lost last week, but their offense obviously looked better immediately. I think they keep it close at LA, which is probably not consensus because everybody's seeing LA being on fire now, starting with the win against us in the last 3 weeks, looking really solid as kind of a playoff team now, pushing into things. So I'm not saying I think the Dolphins are going to win outright, but I do think that it's going to be a closer game. And I just feel like it's been 2 weeks now of waiting for the Tyreek Tua connection. I think this is just going to be the week, and I don't really have any reason to base it on that. I just think it's going to happen as a blowout finally. So I think Dolphins are going to keep it a lot closer than 75-25% picking them. So
I agree.
We'll see.
Pick 'em game. It's essentially a pick 'em game. Dolphins plus one. So I mean, that doesn't make sense.
Yeah. All right, moving from that into the Bomb Squads and Butt Cheeks mini update here. Real quick, just on the current winners and losers. I'm going to try to highlight those as we keep track of it for the week. So current leaders through week 9. We got the winners. Rob and Garlic are now tied at 18. I think Rob had a bye and Garlic made up one game by going 3-0 versus his 2-0. Losses wise, I am still in the lead at 19 now. Mark and Easton are tied at 16. Easton has that 49ers, Dolphins, Jets, so I expect him to fall out fairly quickly because those teams should be winning with both of them getting healthy at the right times. And then Walter is kind of like the one that we thought would be the most fearsome. He's down at, I think, 15 now after a 2-0 week, so love to see that one.
Yeah. I didn't realize that was that close. I didn't realize that was only one game out of second, and then you had a 4 fucking game lead.
Third or fourth technically with Walter, so you're right there.
Love it.
I haven't had my bye weeks yet, so this is also
that would be why, right now.
We'll get into that. Yeah. So this week, currently I'm on the season 8-19 with my Panthers, Raiders, and Seahawks. Feeling very good with those three. The Panthers and Raiders have only gotten worse. Week 9, I went 1-2. Panthers pulled off the upset over the Saints. 1 point. I'm not super worried. They're probably going to win one more game over the entire year. Week 10, though, I've got Carolina versus New York. The Giants we keep talking about. Very, very doable game. I still lean the Giants, but I could easily see Carolina surprise upsetting like a gross 20-17 game. And then the Raiders on bye and the Seahawks on bye. So I go 1-0 or 0-1 this week. Either way, it doesn't really help a lot. It's nice having the 3-game cushion, but I would love to have everybody else not immediately catch up on my lead. So anyway.
And apparently we're just going to play all the head-to-head.
Because I'm like, every week.
Every week is crazy because I'm like, I have the Giants. So obviously I've got the Giants against Carolina this week. But before I get to that, week 9, I went 1-2. Fucking Cardinals. That's just ridiculous. They're good. They're an absolute wagon. That offense is looking great, and Kyler should be up there. And that offense for some of the MVP votes, he's looking great. So we'll get to that. So he's doing really well. And week 10, got Denver versus KC. I mean, that should be a loss.
Feel good.
Yeah, and then Giants versus Carolina, and then Arizona versus the Jets. So I could go 2-1 relatively easily here.
Both 50-50. So, yeesh. All
Yeah.
right.
We'll see.
Well, now we're going to move into some general fantasy talk. We'll keep things rolling along here with a little bit of a swimming upstream.
Just keep swimming, just keep swimming, just keep swimming, swimming, swimming.
So, looking at our season totals, how we're doing so far. I am at 146.94, just under 147, and Tyler is just over 179. For context, that moves me from QB 11 to QB 10, top 10, baby, and then Tyler down to QB 4, down to QB 5. Despite having a slightly better week, it's just more competitive at the top. So,
yeah.
Week 9, you went with Sam Darnold just to switch things up, and that was the right call of the two of ours, getting 19.0 versus Indy. Bo Nix versus Baltimore. I expected him to have to throw a little bit more from behind. Didn't really happen, but 17.72. I don't hate that. I will take it every single week. I'm sure that's higher than what I'm averaging. So, week 10 picks, I have the first one, so I'll kick it off with kind of going back and forth on a few options because there's a lot of like decent matchup options, not really one clear one that stood out, but I'm going a little bit more swinging for the fences. I'm going to talk about this game again for like the 4th time in the show already, but Tua versus the Rams. I'm expecting a shootout just because I think the Dolphins defense can't stop anybody. The Rams also allow an 8.5 yards per attempt for quarterbacks and the 5th most touchdowns on the season. And Tua now, in the 2 games that he's been back, he's had 230 plus yards in both games. Not amazing, but like a good baseline, and only 3 touchdowns. So, I mean, I think really like the positive regression is there for that. And like I said before, I've just got this weird feeling that this is the week that Tyreek has a Tyreek game again instead of this nonsense that he's been doing. So give me Tua for a safe baseline, but potential for some 2-3 touchdown upside.
Yeah, I like that, and definitely would have been likely one of my top if I had the first pick. But what I'm going with is I'm going to take some Danny Dimes. Give me some Daniel Jones simply because Jack won't. That is the only reason I'm picking him. Because there's other matchups out there. You could look at Russell Wilson versus the Commanders defense. Absolutely horrible defense. Probably one of the higher projected on the slate compared to like a Daniel Jones or even a Tua. I'm sure Russell's projected higher, and he's been performing well. But Daniel Jones has a little bit more of that rushing floor, and you can't ask for a better matchup than against the Panthers. So he ran one in last week, so maybe we get 6-7 carries and 45 yards and a touchdown. That immediately makes that floor 7 to 8 points, and you get in the end zone, you already got 12, and then only needs to throw 1 or 2 in, and you got yourself a streamer week. So I think just elevates that floor a little bit, and they don't have a crazy great running game. It seems like the last handful of weeks that they're going to go that route. So maybe we see him throw 1 in or run 1 in or run 2 in and see how it goes. So I'm just going to play the matchup game, and I'm going to take Daniel Jones versus the Panthers this week.
I can't fathom him having 2 good games in a row, but he barely has 1 normally. So I hope that's not the case, but we'll see. Moving into ship it or skip it. So I've once again managed to not spoil these for myself. So I'm going to look this other way, and I'll let Tyler kick off the 4, it looks like, for the week.
Yeah, so mine are pretty straightforward. Nothing too crazy this week, but the first one I got for you is they're talking about trades, and there's been a trade deadline is obviously over now. So, but I'm just kind of curious if you're going into the off season, if you were somebody tail end of the season, and you're somebody like the Raiders or the Giants. The Raiders or Giants should trade for Bryce Young.
Ooh. I don't hate that. I mean, I'm sure they're both going to end up with top 5 picks, so I guess it just is a kind of the cost analysis thing, same as like the Bears having Justin Fields. Like if you pick him up and want to just see what you got in him and then maybe lock down a corner piece, like I can't imagine it's probably going to be like the Zach Wilson thing from a year ago where they gave up like a day 3 late pick just to take him as a backup. So I don't hate that. I mean, then you can actually use the top 5 pick as a cornerstone type of thing. Like go get that lockdown left tackle or an edge rusher that's going to actually make a difference and know that you've got something there. So yeah, I don't hate that as a flyer. I think it's very clear he's not going to have his chance in Carolina. So I'd kick the tires. Yeah, I'm shipping it.
Yeah, I'm with you. It seems like one of those things, exactly to your point, the cost analysis of it all is like it's not going to cost you a first or a second round pick to trade for him, and then you can utilize the capital that you do have to either trade with another QB needy team, go a la Bears and get an absolute haul, and then kick your quarterback down the road and stopgap veteran or whatever, and it's clearly doing just fine. Get a haul of the picks and what should be a good QB class now, because then 2026 is really just Arch Manning and nobody else so far. Obviously, it'll come out, but it's nowhere near as good as this last year's class. But there's still a few in there that should be easily first round picks, if nothing else. And it's just such a big position. I'm sure there'll still be a couple that go top 3.
Yeah.
All right, so the next one for you. The Cowboys are officially done. Dak injured. They said he's going to be out 4 to 6 weeks, essentially ends his season. They're officially done. 0% chance at making the playoffs with Dak out.
Yeah, I won't put a lot of thought into this. I'm shipping it because Dak's a candidate for IR. So, I mean, even if he only misses 2-3 weeks, like, can they really afford to lose? If they go 1-2, it still is like disastrous. I don't think you're coming back from 4-7, 4-8. So, I think just with the injury issues, plus the fact that not only the Commanders, but the Eagles are both also kind of on the up and up. Like you're talking about having to overcome both of them or hope that somehow you're still good enough to be the 3rd team in that division making the playoffs. So no, I think it's done. I think they're going to make some decisions here and try to like rebuild for next year. I wouldn't be surprised to see them have him like sit out longer just to, what's the point? So
yeah. Yeah, I'm with you as well. Especially because remember, CD got hurt as well. We with the shoulder injury, you just never know. So, right now in the NFC, the Cowboys are in 13th essentially. So they're whatever that is, 6 spots out of a wild card spot, and I just doesn't. It doesn't make sense, so I'm with you. I just don't see them being able to keep up enough. They're already 3 games back of a wild card spot of like a Green Bay and Chicago and LA. So it's like I just don't think that they're going to be able to stay alive long enough and stay afloat long enough with all the injuries. And again, remember, they still have Micah Parsons, and that defense is look bad too. So it's just a tough one for the Cowboys, but at least we don't have to hear Cowboys fans say that they're going to go to the Super Bowl.
Here we go.
Ready. So next one for you. Pretty straightforward. The Lions are the best team in the NFL.
Yes. Ship it. I'm in. I think I said that beginning of the season. I think I said they were the number 1 NFC team, and I saw them as my Super Bowl pick. So especially with how the Chiefs have I know record-wise they're up there, but the Chiefs haven't really had it all put together. I think the Lions, even without Aiden Hutchinson, are still looking like that. I think Goff is just on another level right now with the accuracy and what he's doing. So, plus they're well coached. Like defense is good, special teams is good. Like I just think across the board they're so solid. So yes, I am in for that.
Yeah, I'm with you on that one. It just seems like their offense is clicking along with their defense, and KC seems to be only their defense. And don't get me wrong, they obviously had a good game against Tampa Bay. But again, still had to go to overtime and get there. So Hop looks like a perfect piece for them, and trading for that was amazing for them. So we'll see if they put that offense with that defense now, because that defense is amazing. Probably one of the best, if not the best in the NFL. So we'll see if they start to put things together. But I'm still taking the Lions over the Chiefs heads up right now. So I'm with you.
Cool.
Last one for you, kind of interesting. The wagon of a team we keep talking about. The Cardinals are the best team in the NFC West.
I am going
Context.
Go ahead.
Yeah, no, you're good. Context right now. Rams are 5-4, 49ers are 4-4, and the Hawks are 4-5. Cardinals are leading that division right now.
That I was just trying to look that up. That's crazy to me. Just seeing that they're 5-4. So, I am going to skip it because I think between the Rams and the 49ers, when both of them get healthy / are already getting healthy, I think either of them is better. So I don't know that the Cardinals are even the second best in their division. So I'm going to stick with that. I think the Cardinals have some pieces, and it's cool to see them beginning to turn things around, but we're not far away from the last few years of them struggling. So I don't think they have enough. Like their defense isn't there. I think like run game, Marvin Harrison, Trey McBride, offense all has very good pieces, but I don't think that they're a complete enough team to contend with the 49ers, and even the Rams, I think on offense can match up with them. So
yeah, agreed. And yeah, that was a tough one for me because I had to think about it for a second, and I was like, well, 49ers haven't been healthy all season, and they're getting to the point of being fully healthy. So we're going to start to see them really start to turn around, and hopefully everything continues to go well like they talked about. And obviously we know they've activated CMC. For those who haven't heard, I don't know where you've been, but CMC officially activated and did practice today, and said he practiced with no pain, which is pretty incredible. So looking pretty good for week 10, and 49ers getting back their best player and back toward full health.
All right. Well, then now we're going to move into some suit up or sit down. So we got our 3 picks from last week. Looks like we were correct on 2 and incorrect on the 1. We missed on Leggett. Is that the one that I said out on?
So Eckler you said out on, and then Tillman and Leggett we set in. But Jack's trying to just ruin everything in my hard work. So let me at least hit the drop first.
Oh! Suit up! Where's your suit?
That's why. Now sit down and shut up.
Diamond suited up.
Give me your seat now!
Where's my super suit?
That's why now I'm going to sit down and shut up.
I was wondering. I was like, man, we talked about.
I was just rolling right into it.
Jack's favorite thing. He was ready to roll.
Yeah. All right. Well, 2-1 last week. What do we got for our 3 this week?
Yeah, we 2-1 last week. We said Eckler should be a sit down, but that went against us because Brian Robinson got ruled out on Sunday, so that didn't help. So he was at 15.8, and then we said suit up on Cedric Tillman and Xavier Legette, 16.5 and 11.5. So 2 of those certainly good. What can you do about the other one? That was a tough call. But for this week, I got 3 for you: 2 running backs and a wide receiver. We'll start in the running back realm with ya boy, Raheem Mostert versus the Rams. 16th versus running backs. Season low, 23% snap share this last week, but still managed 7.8. Kind of got put into a doghouse after the fumble. So suit him up or sit him down. Raheem Mostert versus the Rams in Week 10.
Mostert has weirdly become one of my guys. I think I've drafted him the last 4 seasons in our league. So
that is correct.
I'm not going to think too much about this one because obviously he's on my team, so I've already done the looking and researching and stuff for this week. But I am cool with suiting him up. I think regardless of if he's not getting a majority of touches because Achane's there, I have no issue playing either or both of these guys just because of that offense being explosive with Tua. We saw 2 weeks ago he got 2 touchdowns despite, again, limited usage. And I think the scoring upside is just there for him. He's clearly the goal line guy over Achane. And I think there's even potential for him as a flex-worthy guy. You're not expecting RB2 potential unless he scores, but I think, even 10 touches, he's still very, very fast. And I think in that offense is still very doable to be getting, in half PPR, full PPR, 10 points pretty easily if he has a couple of bigger breakaway ones. So I'm not scared about the Rams. They're not amazing by any means. And I think, like we talked about before, the Dolphins defense can't stop anything. So I think they're going to be trying to put up points pretty decently. So I'm in for him this week.
Yeah, I'm with you. Second highest over-under on the week at 50.5. I think the Ravens and Bengals tomorrow night are 52.5. So it's both defenses are very middle of the road, so you expect to shoot out with, again, we've talked about it, a more fully healthy Rams offense. And so I think Mostert spells Achane enough to be useful pretty much every week. So I'm with you, Mr. Raheem Mostert. Suit him up.
Suit up!
All right, next one for you. Kind of an interesting one. I'm curious where you go with this one. I think I know where I lean, but Tank Bigsby versus the Vikes. We talked about it. Earlier. We really thought he was taking over, but he's certainly seen a slight downtick in snaps with ETN back. So 2.2 this last week, which was obviously brutal to see. But the 2 weeks before that, again, ETN was out, but 23.8 and 9.6. So are you trusting a Tank Bigsby against what is a very tough matchup against Minnesota, number 2 versus running backs in the NFL?
Yeah, I mean, he did really well when he was getting all the volume, and I think he's a lot more explosive than ETN has been this season. So, I think even with ETN back, he will still be leading the way. But this is more matchup based for me, so I'm going to do a sit down just because I think Vikings front 7 is very, very solid. And controversially, our secondary is rougher, and I think it's going to be a lot more explosive, passing game for Brian Thomas and Evan Ingram. So I'm probably out because I think if he's getting either between 45 to 55% of the workload against our defense, unless you're hoping for a touchdown, I don't think the volume is going to be there. I expect us to be up early, and he's not really the receiving guy. It's more Dearness Johnson. So I don't think there's going to be a lot of dump off game, and he could get game scripted out pretty early on. So I'm out there.
Yep, I'm 100% with you on that one. Sorry, Tank.
Now sit down and shut up.
Last one for you, over to the wide receiver circle. Going back to that Dolphins game, too. So kind of a double up for you. So I'm curious where you go. Jalen Waddle versus the Rams. Number 22 versus receivers. Last 2 games, 6.5 and 6.6. Kind of tough, but hasn't really had that big blow-up game. Again, neither has Tyreek. We've talked about that. Just for fun, because it was in there this last week, he had 2 receptions for -4 yards and a touchdown. We got that weird last play as they were trying to do some schoolyard BS to try to win it, and ended up with a -23-yard catch on the last play. So you ended up with -4 yards. So thought that was interesting, but 6.5 and 6.6.5 PPR. So you're going Jalen Waddle versus the Rams this week. Are you trusting in it?
Yeah, this is really, really tough because I'm looking at all of his games, and literally up until week 1, he doesn't have one over 6.8 the last 8 weeks now. So I mean, granted, I know a lot that is without Tua, and he's a little bit more volume based than Tyreek is, but he really hasn't done a lot. He's dealt with some injuries. I get that. Like, not a lot of what he's done has shown me that it's going to work. But that being said, with this, I'm coming back to this being the second highest over-under projection, and it's going to be expected to be like a high-scoring kind of a shootout type of game. Stafford having Puka and Cooper, like being able to kind of move the ball at will with them. I don't hate it. It's kind of a little bit more like hold your breath and just like close your eyes and hope it works kind of thing. But I don't hate it where I could see him getting 5-6 targets and like that's enough for probably flex worthy. Like you're hoping it's going to be more of a touchdown, obviously, but I could see him just like getting a little bit more volume than he has been getting and maybe getting like to a 60-70 yards type of game. I mean, half PPR, that gets you up to like 10 points. So I'm very on the fence, but I think I'm okay if you don't have better options just because the matchup this week helps me more than the belief in the player specifically.
Yeah, I agree. That was a tough one for me. That felt about like right at the line that I'm like, you, my guy, are like wide receiver 32.5. Like, yeah. I just really don't know what to do with you. Feel like that very tail end flex. You don't feel like an absolute stamp flex by any means, but I also don't think you have enough greater other options. Maybe you do. But Jalen Waddle feels like somebody in this type of matchup with a high over-under that I'm going with as well, and still have the name recognition there. So I'm with you. Jalen, prove us right here. Suit him up.
Suit up!
And real quick, my diamond suit lock of the week. I'm actually going with the sit-down diamond suit of Tank Biggs because that feels like the strongest one to me. So even more than the belief I have in the other two.
Yep, I would agree with that one as well. That's what I got.
Sweet. All right. Well, now we're going to move into some brief league-specific recap stuff. So I'm going to ask Tyler here. How are you doing?
Oh yeah, I should probably hit that one too.
Hey, how you doing?
Yeah, we're doing pretty good. I got another W in the league record. One of the higher points. I might have had the highest points and got the top 6. So we're doing well. We're in first. So we continue rolling along there. Got another W in the FFPC. So we're at 7-2, and I think we're in second in that one. So doing really well. Got Dynasty just continues to be the bane of my existence. I got a loss where I needed to win. I got a win where I needed to lose. So exactly the
witching
opposite
hour.
Exactly opposite of what I was trying to do, but overall, it's a good week. I was happy with what I got going on. So I will always take the W's in the league record and FFPC and bigger money. So I'll take it.
Yeah, I'm feeling good about the FFPC one. That makes me happy every single week because we actually pulled that one together, except for losing Olave. So don't ever ask me to start sit decision ever again because that didn't work out.
Yeah, it didn't work out, but we still won the matchup, so it was good.
I squeaked out a 1-1 week in the league, a record one. Top 6 score barely. I thought I was going to have some more Monday Night Football heartbreak because it literally came down to that again, and I held on by 1 point. So finally had something go my way. Faced the top score of the week again, though. So would have beaten 2/3 of the league, but of course, not who I play. Survived in Dynasty in a close matchup with Ben, who came out of nowhere, keeping my undefeated streak in Taco alive. But it was very, very close until like Monday Night Football also. And then I was the number 1 scorer in best ball in our league, 189 points. So that was a solid week there. It technically puts me into a 4-way tie at 6-3, but I am number 1 based on points. So very, very top heavy in that league, or like the top half is very high end. So yeah, best ball's going fun. That's something different. So enough about our own leagues. We'll get a little bit more into some guillotine-focused stuff with our Guilly segment. So real quick, I'll let Tyler rattle off the most cut players of this past week.
All the cut players. Shing! All right, that was clean. All right, moving on. That was good. So top 10 most cut players from this last week. You'll see some recognizable names on here, a couple injuries and bye weeks and things like that too. So Breece Hall, and then Brian Robinson, Jamar Chase, Jonathan Taylor, Kyron Williams, Chris Olave, Marvin Harrison Jr., Kyler Murray, Puka Nacua, and A.J. Brown were your top 10 most cut from this last week.
So obviously you talked about the injury guys. Like, I mean, you can't really do a whole lot if they get knocked out.
Yeah.
Brian Robinson, last minute inactive. Olave gets knocked out. So you're probably not going out and getting those guys if they're on the waivers. If it's Olave, I'd probably hang on to him just to see if he ends up being ruled out longer. But if he goes IR, I don't hate dropping him because we're living in a week-to-week, short-term type of thing. So a lot of those guys are obviously big names, though, because that's the most commonly rostered people. So if it's anybody that you see like, hey, you know what, I'm solid everywhere but running back, don't be afraid to go like blow it big on Brees. Or if you're like, I'm one big player away and I've only got $300 left, what should I do? If you feel like you've got your end game roster and you're surviving bye weeks, like go spend the money on them now. Because at this point, it's going to look amazing with like 3 to 4 at least studs every single week available. So, it's going to happen every single week. So if it's those like fringe guys where it's like, ooh, a wide receiver 2, normally that would be great in my like redraft leagues. I'm okay waiting because it's going to be just as good, if not better, the following week. So like, make sure it's the elites or nothing unless you're like desperate with an injury bye week situation. Then my other quick little tip is this is kind of the time to start looking at like stealing guys that are on bye weeks. Because for whatever reason, like every week, it seems like the bye week guys like coming into the week don't go for as much. So I don't know. My theory is that people just sort by the projected top scores and then they put all those as their ranked guys and they don't base it on the guys that are 0. So I go and click on the most rostered players and use it off of that. For example, Tyler got George Pickens last week for like nothing. And then I got DK this week, and we'll talk about in a second. But for what I feel like is significantly less, considering he's been injured, so people aren't thinking about him, and he's on a bye week this week. But if you survive them not having them for the week you pick them up, you get value there. So,
yep.
Bye weeks, anything we got to look for there, or the big bids from recent weeks?
Yeah, bye weeks. So week 10, if you're looking at this week, you got the Browns, the Cardinals, Panthers, Giants, Bucks, Browns, Packers, Raiders, and Seahawks this week. And then looking into future weeks, looking at next week, you got Cardinals, Panthers, Giants, Bucks. So nothing crazy this week, like the Brock Bowerses of the world. I guess Nick Chubb, maybe Jordan Love, Jaden Reed. But next week is going to be a pretty brutal one for a lot of individuals. Cardinals, Kyler Murray, James Conner, MHJ. Looking at the Panthers. Just kidding. And then moving over to the Raiders, but you're going to get Chuba and Jonathan Brooks and things like that. I'm sure those were pretty well staples. And into the Giants, you're probably not looking at much of anything. Maybe Wandell, just because of the PPR volume, but probably not. And then Bucks, you're obviously getting a lot. Baker was probably being started pretty much everywhere. Rashad White and Bucky, honestly, also probably started everywhere. And then Kate Otten as well. So just look forward to it. Look forward to next week. If you can pick some of those people up to fill in buys for an hour in a free agent period, absolutely make sure you're looking ahead.
I just spent $5 to get Hunter Henry now because I'm a McBride owner who's out next week, just because I didn't want to risk whoever gets cut this week, if it's not me, having no tight end options or having to go into a bidding war for it. So I'm like, you know what? I'll stash this guy now. I'll drop one running back that I don't need currently, and I'll just know that I have that option locked up. So
agreed.
Go for the big bids.
Yeah, big bids for this week. So since we're doing it a day later, our waivers runs on Wednesday afternoon, so that we're doing this Wednesday night. So we've got week 10, and so what rosters will look like this week. We got some money off the books, and all from one person. By one person. Glick said, I'm going endgame, which is great. So he picked up Bijan for $286, JT for $257, and Jalen Hurts for $67. So he had whatever that was, quick $790 something coming into it. And so he still got $89 behind. He did exactly like we talked about. Let me get my end game guys. Let me fill in these roster spots. He's maybe a wide receiver or two away from being like, I don't need to spend any more money because these are guys who are staples for my entire week. So Glick has played it perfectly thus far, survived to this point, had 2 huge names cut on double down weeks for some of the individuals, and was able to absolutely pound. So good on him. Some of the other ones, Jack got DK for 106 and Raheem Mostert for 52. So really 2 people took all the bids this week.
Yeah.
So
yeah. I didn't really.
So yeah, got some money. Didn't have to spend to overspend. And Dak was obviously a great pickup, and Mostert with your running backs made sense.
Yeah, I was going to say, I technically overspent a little bit, but I feel like DK is a borderline wide receiver 1 when he plays. He's probably like a 15-ish type of guy, so don't hate that being my flex option basically at this point with my wide receivers. And then Mostert, I have Montgomery, but then beyond that, I've got like 4 different guys that all could land as my running back too. So just needed somebody that I think I could have a little bit more like explosiveness to stay alive in the next couple of weeks. So Mostert overspent a little bit, but it works. So, yeah, that's pretty much all I got for that. So I guess we can move right along.
Yes, move right along into one of the most fantastic segments that we have here Give me some of that DFS Faceoff. How you doing, Jack?
For tonight's lovely edition, we have a little bit of screwball action here. So, as you can see, it was up here when the season started, and I'm down to it's brutal. So I'll let you talk about how last week went for both of us and the stupid stat corrections that happened, and I'll just take care of this.
I sure will.
Solo cup for the
very nice
class, and there we go.
Very nice. So we're through 9 weeks, and your boy has 6 wins, and Jack has 3. So that's back to back me. And back to back, very close ones. We finished first and second this week out of the 5 or 6 that do it every week. 157.6 for me to 174.84 for Jack. So lost by less than 1 point. And Jack was talking a little bit about stat corrections. Some of the greatest things. If you don't play DFS on DraftKings, it came down to, once again, like last week, defense, and it didn't do Jack any favors last week, so he lost, and it helped me out this week. We got down to it, and I had the Seahawks defense against the Rams. Well, the Seahawks were on offense and threw a pick 6. So if you play in redraft leagues, usually that counts as points against you, even though your defense didn't do anything wrong. Well, it doesn't in DraftKings DFS. It only counts points that are against you if your defense is on the field. So instead of giving up 26 points, instead of 26 points giving up, the Seahawks defense only gave up 20 points because their defense was not on the field for the pick 6. So I win by less than 1.
Even worse, it took it away. It took the 3 points away when it happened. And I remember texting Tyler and be like, that's so dumb that that's the way it happened. But I had already banked on it doing that. So then when they scored again right at the end, we were both like, if they score, they're going to, I'll win. If they don't score, you'll win. And then they did, and it didn't update. I was like, really? You're going to retroactively now not take away the points? It made it so much worse. So
great.
Can't get any closer. Those are the ones that we need to win, boys. We gotta shore up our defense. But maybe it's not helping that I give away my projected top picks every week. This is what I gotta keep it closer to the vest and see. So
could be. We didn't have too many duplicates this week. This week we just had 3. We had 3 duplicates, and they just all absolutely went bonkers. So we both had Achan 32.1. Cedric Tillman again was just too much value at like 4,200 or whatever he was again, 19.5. And then Mike Gesicki, he was the puntable one and seems to be getting. Well, I just figured he was going to do like last week with T. Higgins out. He's going to continue to get 6, 7, 8, 9 targets with T. Higgins out, and he did that and scored a couple big long touchdowns. So he ended up with 30. So all 3, we didn't happen to nail all those 3, and we just had the same thought process without even talking about it. Some of the key position matchups, I had Hurts versus Jaden, so it was close, but Hurts got a few more. I had Kamara versus Connor, so that worked out for me as well. And then the flex, what almost brought it back for him, he had Terry McLaurin, who only had 2 catches, but both of them were touchdowns, versus I tried to double up on tight end again and slide Zach Ertz in there because he had been getting consistent volume, and this was the first time he had 1 catch. So that almost screwed me going double tight ends again, but we held on just enough because I had some positional advantages elsewhere.
I think you have to do double tight ends until you lose now, just based on this streak. I think you have to keep
Agreed.
it going. So
I don't hate it. It works. It works. Tight ends are so much cheaper than so many of the other options, and there's plenty out there that have modest volume that for the price point that they are, if you get 6 out of them, you're ecstatic because they cost $3,100.
Right. You mentioning a couple of the other players reminded me too. I forgot that I made it to within a point of you, despite having Olave in my lineup, which I spent $6,000 for, and he got a big old nothing when he got hospital passed out of the game. So that was also a pretty key matchup. But anyways, new week.
I can't remember who my other terrible one was.
As far as week 10 thoughts and early ones that I have while you're looking that up, looking at Sam Darnold, 6,200 versus the Jaguars. They give it the most points to quarterbacks. Darnold has 6 out of 7 games with 17 or more points, so a pretty solid baseline floor, and has Hawkinson back another week healthy. Or going a little bit cheaper option, Justin Herbert, 5,200 versus Tennessee. Don't hate that, just for kind of a low upside, but high floor type of thing. So running backs wise, I hate putting this in here, but DeAndre Swift, 6,500 versus the Patriots. He has 18 or more touches in 5 straight games. So I feel like he's being priced as a running back too when he's like getting bell cow work. 20.9 PPR points per game, and the Patriots are just very bad versus the run. Like every metric you look at, they're bottom 5. A little bit cheaper options, Rashad White or Bucky Irving. Pick your poison, 59 and 5,700 versus San Francisco. Not great, but I think it's just for their receiving work. They're likely going to be needing to score a lot. Rashad White alone has 6 targets each of the last 2 weeks. So being utilized, and it's probably going to be game scripted up where, again, there's just not really a lot of other options right now with all their top receivers hurt. Receivers-wise, my probably number one stable pick of the week, Brian Thomas, only $6,000 versus the Vikings. He's like $6,000 every week despite being a wide receiver one and always getting the deep targets. So been solid all year. The Vikings secondary is very bad. We can score on offense, which means the Jags will have to throw probably early. And like I said, there's really nobody else left in the Jaguars for them to throw to. A little bit dirtier option at receiver, Ray McLeod, 4,300. It's versus the Saints, who they just traded away Marshawn Lattimore. Their defense is bad anyways beyond him, and then Drake London might miss, who we'll talk about in a second. But if he misses, absolutely Ray McLeod's in my lineup. And then lastly, Josh Downs, 6,200 versus Buffalo. Assuming Flacco continues to start. Like I talked about, Downs is basically a wide receiver one with Flacco playing. And then the Bills defense is tough versus the pass, but they're actually kind of a slot funnel, it turns out, which is pretty much primarily where Josh Downs lives. So lastly, I got tight end Jake Ferguson from the Cowboys. This is if CeeDee Lamb is out. Cooper Rush could be looking at him as a safety net, so I don't hate that for $5,000. Or if you want to go real gross and gamble, Taysom Hill, $4,000. If Olave misses, they don't have really any other options, and he somehow has 4 or more carries, 4 or more passing targets, and 1 pass attempt in each of the last 2 games since returning from his injury. So they're doing the Swiss Army knife thing, and he seems like the goal line back. He seems like he had a passing touchdown last week. He just gets work for very cheap. So 4,000, like Tyler talks about, you need to double that. If you get 8 points, I mean, if he gets a passing or a rushing touchdown, you're basically already almost there. So gross, but if you need to save money, it's a way to do it.
100%. And Taysom is somebody that obviously anybody who listens to this and knows is just one of my dudes. When you can stick somebody like that in your tight end slot and know that he's going to have the opportunity when it comes down to goal line and everything like that, he is their number 2 running back. Kendre Miller and I can't remember the
Jamal Williams was out.
Is out, so it's like he's the number 2 running back. Remember that. And Kamara can't get all of the work. And again, he's also in there as wildcat snaps. He takes the direct snap. He can throw it as well. He lines up as a tight end. He's somebody who literally is everywhere on the field and plays like 70% of the snaps. So you can do so much worse in a redraft league, let alone a DFS league.
Yep, totally agree. All right, moving into last couple sections here. Dynasty download. I've got 2. I'm just going to pick one of them, and we can save another one for next week, just time-wise. But I got a keep trade cut for you. So I'm going to do the kind of more interesting, fun one. I picked all injured wide receivers that are out for the season this year. So more speaking of coming from it, pretending you're putting yourself in the shoes of a rebuilder or somebody who's looking for next year. Because obviously a contender is not going to trade current capital for like one of these guys that's not going to help them. So assuming you're maybe a rebuilder, like a guy that thinks that they're like a year, maybe 2 years away tops. So we got Chris Olave, Brandon Ayuk, and Rashee Rice, all with season-ending injuries, all relatively same or similar ages, all locked in at least for the mid-future to their teams.
That is a very tough one for me.
And all coming off injuries.
They are all coming off injuries. I was like, and I'm an Olave hater. Like, I know it. He was my fade, and coming into the year, and obviously he's hurt now as well. Ayuk and Rashee Rice,
and they're all like back to back in Dynasty. Like they're very close.
Yeah, which I'm not surprised at. For me, I feel like I'm probably keeping Rashee Rice, and that's. I think he's my top one on this list, just because he's going to have, and what's my opinion, the least target competition. Travis Kelce is going to be gone very soon, if you think about it, within the next year or two. And again, remember going into this next year, Rashee is probably going to be suspended for some of his other stuff. But if we're looking like 1.5 to 2 years out, Rashee's going to be that number 1 and was clearly the absolute target hog for KC before he got hurt. So he feels like somebody who's going to have the most consistent volume. Olave is probably second on that. And I'm not so sure about Ayuk. I think Ayuk is probably the second most explosive on there. I'll still take Rashee in almost all the categories. So I think for me, I'm going to keep Rashee for sure. Olave and Ayuk is a toss-up for me. But I think I'm keeping, or I think I'm trading Ayuk, and I think I'm cutting Olave.
Yeah, on my initial instinct, I pretty much agree immediately on the cut with Olave, just because I think the other two are locked up longer. Rashid being on his rookie deal, and Ayuk just signed the big extension. And of the three, Olave has the worst quarterback. I mean, granted, they might move on from Carr and find something else, but he has the worst. He hasn't proven it. The other two have at least had wide receiver 1 seasons, or Rashid starting to break out. So I think I'm the highest on Rashid Rice, but I think I'm torn between Ayuk and Rashid as far as who to keep and who to trade, because I don't know if you're getting a ton of value for Ayuk based on how rough he looked to start the year, whereas maybe there's the hype of like how good Rashid was and like the age difference. So I would maybe consider doing the trade Rashid Rice only because you might be able to get more value for him. But if you're going in context of like ranking him, Rashid is my number 1. So that's the only thing I give pause for. But I'd be targeting him more than I would be targeting Ayuk. Though, to your point about Kelsey being gone soon, Debo could very well be gone in like a year or two also. Like I could see the 49ers moving on with that and him getting older and then not wanting to pay him on top of what they've already just paid Ayuk. So we'll see.
Yeah.
All right. That's it for that one. Obviously, we have no add or drop it like it's hot because waivers have already run as of today, and you're going to be listening to this tomorrow. So a little bit of time melt for you. But we'll do some injuries really quickly here, and then we'll go from there for wrapping stuff up. So if you want to do quarterbacks and receivers, we'll take it away from there.
Yeah, so just a couple quarterbacks, but some big news. Dak Prescott, he's a candidate for IR, hamstring injury. The update that I saw today was 4 to 6 weeks, so I will not be surprised if they put him on IR. So tough blow for the Cowboys that were already having a tough season. Then the other one, Trevor Lawrence, seemed pretty minimal, shoulder injury, but he's expected to play, so I expect him to be out there versus the Vikings. Wide receiver, seems like a lot of individuals that are kind of banged up. Knicks at this point of the season in week 10 certainly makes sense. Drake London had a hip pointer. You saw it. He landed pretty hard on it. So he's questionable. I think he'll play, but it's certainly one to keep an eye on, in my opinion. Amari Cooper, wrist injury. He missed last week. He was limited this week. Again, I think he'll play, but I won't be surprised. Keon Coleman, another wrist injury, didn't practice Wednesday. Sounds like he might miss this week. It seems like they're much more concerned about his than initially anticipated. T. Higgins quad, listed as doubtful. Thursday Night Football against the Ravens tomorrow. So I think T. Higgins misses another week. CeeDee Lamb, shoulder injury on his AC joint. They said he's week to week, but are optimistic for him. So again, certainly one to keep an eye on this week. I won't be surprised if they push him out here, and I will not be surprised if they sit him for a week. So I'm just looking at long-term things. Nico Collins, hamstring, he's eligible to return. Sunday Night Football, he didn't practice again, but he is eligible to return. So I don't know. He's an interesting one. He's a toss-up to be out there. They might just hold him out one more week. Olave concussion, likely out, possible IR candidate. They said they haven't decided for sure. And then A.J. Brown, knee injury, questionable, but he practiced today, so I think he'll be fine.
Moving into running backs, more activation news here, but Jonathan Brooks' knee officially activated this week, full participant in practice Tuesday and Wednesday. He's still questionable Sunday, so the team's deciding whether to play him or not. CMC, we talked about Achilles injury. He's been out for weeks now, but he's designated to return his 21-day window as of Monday. He was limited in practice Wednesday, but like Tyler talked about, didn't feel any pain according to him. So I wouldn't be surprised if it's another week. So those of you that are Jordan Mason owners, I would hold because you might get another week of the full starter or just very limited CMC, but we'll see. Speaking of Jordan Mason, shoulder, but he did practice full Wednesday. He was dealing with that AC joint sprain issue. Brian Robinson, we talked about, he missed this past week. Hamstring issue. He's questionable as of now, but it seems like the coach thinks he's going to play. And then tight ends, Isaiah Likely, we just got news today that with his hamstring, he is officially out for Thursday Night Football. And Dallas Goedert, also with a hamstring, he's missed the last 3 weeks. He's questionable for this week. He's limited at practicing. So it sounds like it still might be 1 week out, if not fully active, ready to go this week. So a couple of notes for those guys to be watching for, and that is it. So we managed to actually be just under an hour, so I'll let you make the call. Are we doing the draft this week or saving for next week, or what are you feeling?
Yeah, I might save it for next week. An hour feels prime, feels less. So I was like, gives me a little bit more time to edit everything and get it out first thing tomorrow morning. So, but yeah, so we'll come back next week as we get a little bit more on track with our kind of best treasure hunters. So we haven't really decided what that means. I don't know if we're looking for treasure in the ocean or in New York City or what we're doing here. We're putting together a team, but we'll figure it out. So it'll be a fun one if We might just go, hey, who are the best treasure hunters that you know of? Or we could be putting together a team and searching for a pot of gold. We'll see. Should be fun.
I like it. All right, cool. Well, that's it. We'll wrap things up here as we're coming up on the hour. So let us know your picks for next week if you want to get in on it. If you ever want to be a guest drafter, we had a couple of those last season. It was a lot of fun. Let us know. Or if you want to just hop in on the show and join some more segments with us. Check us out on YouTube, subscribe, comment. Helps the show out a lot. So we appreciate you guys. Vote on the drafts that we're going to be posting on Facebook. And that's all I got. So I'll let Tyler wrap it up.
Thanks everybody for the listen, and appreciate you guys checking us out, and enjoy Thursday night football tonight. But until next week, Pod Squad, peace out.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to the Brotherly Ballers podcast. Check out more content on youtube.com/@thebrotherlyballers.